Thank you, Senator Daines, and I'll just follow up with some comments here. It is somewhat interesting in recognizing it was out of the Department of Interior in 2013, the report that was commissioned by DOI that did conclude that raising the royalty rates on the onshore oil and gas production would discourage investment and thus bring less money into the Treasury, and thus was not warranted. So now GAO comes out with a report, and what we see is in the budget proposal, we're going to increase the proposal is to increase the rates. I appreciate the fact that you're saying you're going to do an analysis, but one would think that you would do the analysis before you move to advance it through a budget proposal. So I agree with Senator Daines. That is something that I'm concerned about, because I think it's going to have an unintended consequence, or perhaps intended, depending on your perspective. I think it's important that we do what we can to increase production on our public lands and thus increase revenues to our Treasury, because production is up. It is interesting to me that when you look at the leasing statistics through BLM over the past couple decades, we're seeing a decline in the leasing. Throughout the Clinton administration, the average acres leased per year was 3.3 million. Then in the Bush administration, the average was 3.6 million per year. During the first 6 years of the Obama administration, the number drops to an average of about 1.6 million acres per year. So, I mean, this is a trend that, in my view, is not good for us. And then when you overlay the rules, the hydraulic fracking rules, the proposals to increase regulation on methane, possibly this proposal to increase royalty rates, I see that just pushing it down further. Can you give me any hope that, in fact, we're not going to continue this downward trend, but that we are going to see increased production on our public lands?
So I can give you a lot of hope.
Good. I want a lot of hope.
Because we've seen an 81% increase on the places where you need a BLM permit to operate. We've seen an 81% increase in oil production during this administration. So in BLM managed lands,
so not necessarily new leases, but on existing leases, you're seeing increased production.
It would be a combination of both. So we have seen a huge increase, which we're very proud of being part of. And then there's also some important numbers out there to know. One is that 34 million acres of land have been leased. Only a third of that is producing. So within industry's hands today, there's significant headroom for development.
And also, would you agree that some of the limitations on the ability to produce have been related to some of the regulatory issues? I mean, all you need to do is look at NPRA, and it's a perfect case in point in terms of acreage out there that is being leased, but we're not seeing a drop of anything at this point in time, and it's not because you don't have operators that are willing and able to move forward. You've got a lot of going at one another through regulatory requirements that is just stalling out any initiative there.
Well, I'm not sure that's always the case. So in the lower 48, there's an average of about 3,000 wells drilled on public and Indian lands each year. We, however, have 6,000 permits that we've approved and are ready to go. So industry has come in, they said, we'd like to drill here. We've approved that application. It needs no further work from us at all. It could start today.
How do you respond, though, to those? And I was out in North Dakota with Senator Hoeven some years ago, and you talk to the operators that are ready, willing, and able to go. They've got federal leases, but quite honestly, they can move to production so much more quickly on state and private lands than they can on the federal, that they will literally go around federal lands. They will look for every opportunity to be anywhere except our public lands.
Well, I think when you look at the fact that we have a 2-year front log, essentially, of permits that are ready to go, I think there's somewhere there's a disconnect that's very important, because there's huge opportunity out there for industry to produce today.
We understand that there's huge opportunity. And it seems, as I'm talking to those who are ready, willing, and able to go, they tell me their biggest obstacle is our federal government. It's not that they don't have the technology. It's not that they don't have the capital to invest. It is the regulatory hurdles that they face in accessing our public lands.
Yeah, and I hear that occasionally too, but the 6,000 permits, the 2 years worth of work that can be done today, there are no hurdles. There's nothing. So there's 2 years worth of work, there's billions of dollars of investment that's available. And I do appreciate that we need to have a forward-leaning system for developing American energy. We're doing that. There are places where we certainly can improve. Our permitting times are one of those. So a few years ago, when I joined the Bureau of Land Management, we were at 300 days per permit. We're down to roughly 200, 225 days.
That's certainly not in Alaska.
Well, we're headed in the right direction. One thing that we're doing system-wide is we're going to an online system so that instead of passing paper back and forth, which is a big time killer, we potentially can get down to averages like they have seen at times in Carlsbad, New Mexico, where it's in the 60 to 70-day realm. So we're moving aggressively. We're trying to find some of the efficiencies that I think you're pointing at.
Well, and we need to find those efficiencies. I wish I had the chart with me today that shows how long it takes to get to permitting on state private lands versus how long it's taking us through our BLM lands. And the contrast is extraordinary. And there are lands that are literally side by side. And in many cases, operators that clearly know what they're doing. And so saying that we can do a better job, I think belies the obvious. And I think this is one of those things that we need to get down to. I know that within the Department of Interior, you've got a stated goal of permitting 10,000 megawatts of renewable energy production on federal lands. We met that goal back in 2012, I'm told, but it doesn't seem that we are willing to dedicate equal focus to our more traditional energy sources on public lands. Do you even have a measurable goal for conventional production of oil and gas on our public lands?
I would say that our budget reflects a serious commitment to conventional energy.
But I mean, do you have a goal, like you stated, as you stated earlier, within the department in terms of what it is that we want to see with renewables? You set a goal out there, you met it. Do we do the same for conventional?
We do not. So
why is that?
Well, the renewable energy goal that you noted was created here in Congress. It was part of the 2005
So we would
Energy
just
Act.
need to create in Congress a goal for our conventional fuels on public lands.
Well, I'm saying that in the 2005 Energy Act, there was an aspirational goal saying that by 2015, we'd like to see the Department of the Interior authorize 10,000 megawatts. We exceeded that. At this point, we're at 14,000 megawatts plus. We're very proud of that. We took a program that basically did not exist and turned it into something pretty spectacular. On the oil and gas side, we need the resources to do the same. So that's part of our roughly 20% budget increase request for our oil program
Well, but wait a minute. When you say you need the resources to do the same, you've got the private sector that is out there that is ready, willing, and able to go after the resource. So it's not as if you and BLM need to reinvent the wheel. In my view, you need to have a more expedited process. In many cases, you just need to get out of the way. So it's not. I don't understand why you would say we need more resourcing to do this. Now, you mentioned earlier that you do need additional resources for inspectors. We know that we've got to have a level of safety and protocol out there, certainly understand that. But again, I think when you are looking at those ways, those measures that you can enhance production on our federal lands to increase jobs, to increase revenues, it's not something that, as a department, you need to to increase your budget to do that. I think you've got an industry that is ready to go to work, but we make it so hard on our public lands. We make it so difficult that those that are ready, willing, and able will go out of their way to avoid the production on our public lands. And you've cited that, you know, you're pleased with the level of leasing that you have, but in fact, what we've seen is a very, very direct and clear trajectory downward in terms of leasing on our public lands over this past 6 years here. And so, yeah, we might be able to say that production is up. Production is up because you've got a commitment to extract as much as you can out of these existing leases. But it's tough to be able to explain to people who believe very strongly that our energy assets are something that we should value. When we say on our federal lands, it's just that much more difficult. It's just that much more complicated. And yet you've got good operators making things happen on state and private lands, contributing to jobs, contributing to our energy security. And there is a disconnect here. And I'm trying to drill down to how we can do the reconnect. And we need to be working with you on these initiatives to make that difference. I've gone over my time. I want to turn